I'm sorry I disappeared nowadays. Assuming most of you caught most of the play, I thought we could use this performance as an opportunity to talk about the plight of both art and politics and political art in the times that we're living through. Given that so many of our art forms, especially theater, rely on human physical presence and energy. And as we proceed with the panel, hopefully the actors who were part of this production can also share a little bit about our experiences. But we wanted to bring together this lovely panel of people who have very different relationships to art and politics in many ways, while we all share the same ground. And our roots look very similar. So we can maybe start with Vani. Vani looks ready to speak, shall we? Vani is very many things. She's a filmmaker, and her most latest film on the death penalty has been available online. I don't know if it still is, but please look it up. She's also a member of Saheli, one of the oldest feminist collectives in this country, and such an influential space on the growth of so many of us. And she's a feminist activist who's been working on a range of issues for decades now. She's also been doing funny performance things lately, as I noticed with Glee. She was part of the latest sort of absurd theater production, which involved Maya Rao and Vikram Iyengar. So Vani, if you could take us through some of the thoughts and what arises from this performance also of what art and politics could look like in our current context.
First, hi, and congratulations to all of you. It's beautiful to be sitting here watching a performance that's happening all over. And honestly, technical glitches, we all know, we live with them all the time, it's fine. I mean, I don't think we lost a moment of what it felt like, what you were saying, you know, what was being communicated. You felt it, although it was so, you know, or even when it was broken, I think that became then part of what we were sharing, actually. So for me, I mean, there was no disruption at all. I'm really looking forward to actually listening to both Indu and Dilo. It'd be great to hear you guys and, you know, and where you come in. I think I'm just going to open with a few thoughts on the performance, and I think we can maybe open the conversation as we go along. I don't have anything like conclusive to say. I think we're all in the process of thinking, evolving, experimenting. And I think today's was a fantastic experience of looking at how do you create a sense of shared space, yeah? And partly it is visually, you know, through what you do in each setting, and to that extent, you know, the design of the space and, you know, how you're using that kind of static, non-static kind of camera kind of work to give it some dynamism in life, but actually keep you focused on people and the emotion that's holding it. And interestingly, for language to actually become the subtitle to become something that is able to then communicate it, I think this was really, I mean, it's the first time I'm seeing it. I don't know whether others have done it, and they may have, but it doesn't matter. It was really, really rich. And I think the way in which it became, because, you know, in a sense, this moment is so much imbued with both local tensions and global tensions. I think the lives we are leading right now are both peculiarly, there's a global phenomenon called the pandemic and what it's doing to poor and disadvantaged and marginalized and, you know, groups that are not on top of hierarchies of caste, of patriarchy, of religion, of race, of color, of ethnicity, you know. So there's one thing it's doing in different, it's manifesting itself differently, but in that sense, there is that shared experience. And it was chilling, moving, difficult, funny, all of that, to sort of see them, you know, totally tied together. I think it had that sense of that shared pain. and that was lovely, and also of resilience in peculiar, and the languages of resilience. So I think I mean, for me, that's what I mean, I was so caught up in that, and I think that spoke very widely. And the fact that a lot of us are in displaced locations. I'm a Tamilian, but I'm more North Indian in my upbringing and my life. um, Pony, you're sitting in Batacloa, Dilo, you're in the US. So, I think there's a way in which this thing brought it together, and congrats to all of you for that. So I think, why don't we just start with some comments on this rather than bigger, I mean, we'll come to the bigger questions. What do you say, Pony? Is that okay with you?
Should we do either Dilo or Indu want to take off on that as well?
Yeah, I can. I was just thinking the whole time.
Let me just introduce you, Indu. Sure. Let me just introduce you quickly. Okay. So that's Indu Vashist. She's joining us from Toronto in Canada. Indu has been a long-term member and supporter of the Marappachi Feminist Theatre Collective in Chennai. She, in Toronto, is the executive director of the South Asian Visual Arts Center, one of the oldest arts-based centers in artist-run centers in Canada that specifically caters to South Asian artists. She's a few other things, like a good set designer, costume guy, and makeup, and has done that for us at Marappachi many times.
Okay, so a few things came to my mind as I was watching. One, I fully agree with Vani. Also, hi Vani, hi Dilo.
Hi.
It's been so long. But I think the things that came to my mind, I really agree with Vani. Like, I think you can very much see that this play was developed on this platform. You've explored as a collective the limits and the constraints that the platform offers, and have worked within them and pushing with the bounds in a way that I think is quite phenomenal. Because you see a lot of art that's been developed during the pandemic that's like, oh, I wish we didn't have to do it this way, and so I guess we have to do it this way. Whereas this is really obviously working with the space. It's like, it reminded me of what it's like to work in spaces in Madras and know the space so intimately that we're exploring the confines. We know exactly the parameters of the stage. We know how deep the space is, and you've done that in a virtual space, which is just, it just blew my mind. That's so beautiful to me, that you've been able to find a way to share space and energy on a platform that is so unfriendly to that. So that, I think, is one thing that I was really taken by. The second thing that has come to mind is I've been reading a lot of, I've been watching and reading a lot of work that's been made in the pandemic about the pandemic. And I've been, Zadie Smith has just come out with a book called Intimations. I think it's 6 essays that are just observations of human behavior in this moment, and with all of the other things that are going on globally. And Ali Smith has also written a book, The Last of the Seasonal Quartet. And what's interesting is how within a feminist frame of mind, there is not an urgency, and it doesn't come from this urgency of we have to get these things out there, but there's kind of this thing of like, we need to imprint whatever is happening right now so we don't forget. And I think it's a process, and it's about imperfection. And I'm really enjoying that. In the introduction to Intimations, Zadie Smith says, I should work on these essays for 5 more years. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat, Mange. She said, I should be working on these essays for 5 more years, but she finds a need to not be perfect right now. And I think that we're all living with that. We're all living in this moment of imperfection, and we're working with that. And I think this play really explores what that could look like using this imperfect form. She's never cared about that in a way that I think is quite phenomenal, and that's what makes it feminist for me, but as a theater form. But I think within this play, there's something so deeply moving about just the need to connect rather than the need to produce a product. I'll hand it over to Dilo.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here first and foremost, be with you both, and to see this work.
I have to introduce you.
I didn't know if you were there.
I
didn't
introduce
know if you
you?
got taken out by the rain and
I
Batsy.
got thrown off again. Yeah, got thrown off again. Okay, I'm back. So Dilo is a dear, dear friend and is originally from this land where I am right now. Well, close-ish. He's from up north. And currently lives in Los Angeles. Dilo is an organizer and an actor who's been working both on stage and on screen. And from what I understand, hoping to run a range of workshops to mentor more people of color, queer and trans folks in the US in the field of performance. So, Dilo.
Thank you, Pony. So like I was saying, I'm so happy to be here. I'm echoing both the sentiments and the comments and the sort of framing that both Indu and Vani just shared. As an artist who has primarily worked my whole artistic, I guess, career, if you want to call it, in live performance, at you know, and doing more political, social justice based work, I have been so disheartened by what I have been consuming when it comes to people really trying to shape what it looks like on Zoom. And there were so many things about this play that I was, you know, I get inspired every single time I am witness to or get to participate in anything that Pony, you or Mange call me in for. And tonight was also another one of those instances where first of all, I was like, well, how does everybody have the same similar artwork in the background? Oh, it was sound that brought people in. Simple, gorgeous. How such, like the concept was so strongly fixed that even through the technical glitches, even through whatever, like, it's, you know, I was just drawn in, pulled in. I had technical issues on my side as well, and I was still able to be completely there with everyone. And the actors were incredible, as always. Like, everyone you work with is always shining and so 100% committed and gorgeous. And so all these elements make me think, with this concept, with this phrasing, Maya Angelou's poem as well, but this I Can't Breathe, which is so much more of a deeper phrase for me in the States, as a lot of our political organizing is, you know, in support of Black lives and looking at our own anti-Black racism in the South Asian American community, and why Black folks can't even fucking breathe, you know? I was so inspired because I was like, in this moment where we are, as a collective of South Asian artists for Black lives, we are trying to figure out what kind of art is being made that we can make that is in support and centers Black people. And and then there's a lot of folks saying like, you know, maybe we shouldn't be doing that right now. Maybe all of our efforts should be to support and promote the work of Black folks. And then on the other hand, some people are like, we have to, as many, I think Indu, you were the one who was talking about that there's a sense of urgency and we need to be talking to our people and we need to be sharing in all the ways possible. And it's going to be imperfect. And we're going to learn, we're going to struggle, but that we do really need to stand up and rise. And not that one is on the other extreme side of the other. It's just that these are things that we are thinking about and wanting to put our best foot forward and coming with all of our intersections and desiring to make this world a better place and as artists. And so anyway, again, just talking back about the inspiration that I get from, that I got from being witness to this piece, my brain is churning still, and I'm thinking about how lovely it is to share things so simplistically. I'm not trying to say it's simple, of course. I'm saying that there's just these raw things that we can attach ourselves to thematically in art that blow up our minds and our hearts. And for that, I thank you. Angay and Ponni and everybody, Chennai Theatre Academy.
Around here, we don't say blow up is a positive thing. Sorry, just a dark Sri Lanka joke. I would like to call on all of our cast and crew to maybe turn on yours and sound. Tamil, English ரெண்டுலயும் பேசலாம். இப்போ அவங்க சொன்னதை நான் கொஞ்சம் ஒரு சாராம்சமா மொழிபெயர்ப்பு செய்யறேன். 3 பேரும் திரும்ப திரும்ப சொன்னது என்னன்னா, இப்ப இருக்கிற சூழல்ல வந்து இப்படியான கலை வடிவங்கள் உருவாக்கும் போது அதுல இருக்கிற எவ்வளவு பெரிய சவால்களுக்கு நம்ம இதை செஞ்சிருக்கோங்கிறத சொல்றாங்க. முக்கியமா வந்து ஒரு என்ன சொல்றது, மனிதனுக்கு மனிதன் தொடர்பு கொள்ள முடியாம இருக்கிற சூழல்ல வந்து முழுக்க முழுக்க அப்படியான மனுஷ தொடர்பு சார்ந்த ஒரு கலை வடிவத்தை வந்து நம்ம கொண்டு வந்து அதுவும் நம்ம ஒருத்தர் கூட இல்லாம பார்க்காம செஞ்சதை பத்தி அவங்க சொன்னாங்க. அந்த அனுபவங்களை பத்தியும் கேக்குறாங்க. சோ எல்லாரும் வரலாமா? சௌமி, சதாஷி, நந்திதா, கிருஷ்ணா, அங்கை. சோ நம்ம எல்லாரும் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா ஷேர் பண்ணிக்கலாம். சௌமி ஸ்டார்ட் பண்றியா? I'll translate after she speaks.
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இதெல்லாம் எப்படின்னு எனக்கு சாத்தியமான்னு தெரியல எனக்கு. ஆனா இவ்வளோ இதுவா நல்லா வரும்னு சொல்லிட்டு நான் எதிர்பார்க்கவே இல்லை. சும்மா நம்ம ஏதோ போய் பார்க்கலாம் அப்படின்ட்டு தான் நானும் இது பண்ணிட்டேன். இது இந்த அளவுக்கு பெரிய ஹிட் ஆகும்னு சொல்லிட்டு நான் எதிர்பார்க்கவே இல்லை, சக்சஸ் ஆகும்னு நான் எதிர்பார்க்கவே இல்லை. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணும்போது ரிஹர்சல் இங்கே தான் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணேன். இங்க இருந்து அப்புறமேட்டு அம்மா வீட்டுல போய் பண்ணேன். நம்ம ரிஹர்சல் பண்ணோம்னாக்கா எல்லாருமே ஒரு இடத்துல கூடி நம்ம ரிஹர்சல் பண்ணுவோம். ஆனா இந்த ரிஹர்சல் அப்படி இல்லாம நம்ம எங்க இருக்கிறோமோ அந்த இடத்துல ரிஹர்சல் பண்ணி பார்த்து, எனக்கு இடம் மாறினதால கொஞ்சம் பிரச்சனை எல்லாம் கூட இருந்தது. அந்த இடத்துல நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ரிஹர்சல் அம்மா வீட்டுல பண்ணும்போது முன்னாடி ஒரு ஷெல்ஃப் இருக்கும், எனக்கு நல்லா வசதியா இருக்கும். அந்த ஷெல்ஃப்ல நான் ரொம்ப இதை வச்சுட்டு நல்லா பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். எனக்கு இந்த இடத்துல வந்துட்டு அது பண்ணும்போது எனக்கு அந்த அளவுக்கு கம்ஃபர்டபுளா வரல எனக்கு. இருந்தாலும் எல்லாரும் இருக்கிற சப்போர்ட்ல நானும் ஏதோ பண்ணேன் அப்படின்ட்டு நினைக்கிறேன்.
So Soumya has been working with Marappachi and many other theatre groups in Tamil Nadu for many years now. So she essentially said that she didn't expect this production to turn out the way it did. It began as something where she thought, okay, let's try this and see what happens. She didn't expect it to turn out to be this powerful or have such an impact on people watching. She said she's also been in different places through the process of the rehearsals. So she was in her mother's house, and then of course had like various there illnesses, small space, bad internet, etc. And then was practicing there for a long time, and then suddenly had to shift to another house, and then to put the backdrop and how it was uncomfortable, and she needed the energy from all of us to kind of then continue to rehearse and come up to what you all saw today. அடுத்து யார்? தமிழரசன் இதுல வேணாலும் பேசலாம்.
நான் தமிழ்ல பேசுறேன், நீ இங்கிலீஷ்ல டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ணுங்க, அதான் பெட்ரு. நான் இங்கிலீஷ்ல பேசாம தப்பா புரிஞ்சுக்கினா. ஸோ தேங்க்யூ ஆல் ஆஃப் யூ. சௌமியா சொன்ன மாதிரி இது சாத்தியமா அப்படின்னு எங்களுக்கு தெரியல ஃபர்ஸ்ட். ஆனா இந்த இனிஷியல் ப்ரொடக்ஷன் ஸ்டேஜுக்கு முன்னாடி ஒரு ஆல்மோஸ்ட் பேண்டமிக், இந்தியாவில் பேண்டமிக் ஆரம்பிச்சது மார்ச்ல ஆரம்பிச்சாங்க. ஏப்ரல் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வீக் செகண்ட் வீக்லேருந்து ஐம் நாட் ஷுர், அதுலேருந்து நாங்கள் ஒரு ஜூம் காலில் ஜஸ்ட் லைக் டிஸ்கஷன்ஸ் வச்சுக்கிட்டோம். அந்த டிஸ்கஷன்ஸ் தான் வந்து இந்த ப்ரொடக்ஷனோட ஒரு பேஸ்ன்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். ஏன் அப்படின்னா இந்த ப்ரொடக்ஷன் பண்ண போறோமா இல்லையான்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி இதுல என்னென்ன டெக்னிக்கல் டிஃபிகல்டிஸ் இருக்கு அப்படின்றத அந்த டிஸ்கஷன் வந்து எங்களுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுது. நம்ம வேகமா பேசினா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வார்த்தையும் லாஸ்ட் வார்த்தையும் மட்டும்தான் கேட்கும். ஸோ நம்ம வேகமா பேசக்கூடாதுன்றது அந்த டிஸ்கஷன் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுச்சு. நீ இதை சொல்லி முடிச்சிருக்கா, அதுக்கப்புறம் நான் பேசுறேன்.
Thambi, he said that basically before we started working on the play itself, we started as soon as the pandemic kind of hit and there was a lockdown in India. We started meeting once a week as theatre people to just talk about whatever we wanted to talk about. So we were all part of that. So we tried to do exercises on Zoom. We tried to do, and then he said that helped us gain familiarity with the form. So we learned, for example, that you can't speak too fast. The first and the last words and nothing in the middle. So the pace in which you deliver your dialogue has to change in this form. So yeah, so that's how this process began. For us, me also, Tamilarasan also.
Yeah. அதுக்கப்புறம் நிஜமாவே இன் பர்சன் வந்து நம்ம அந்த எனர்ஜி டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் இருக்குல்ல, அந்த எனர்ஜி டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் வந்து இதுல ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இனிஷியல் ஸ்டேஜ்ல கிடைக்கல. பட் இதுதான் பாசிபிலிட்டி, உனக்கு இருக்கிற பாசிபிலிட்டி இதுதான். ஸோ எங்களுக்கு நாங்களே அடாப்ட் ஆயிட்டோம். ஸோ ஓகே, இதுக்குள்ள நாங்கள் எங்களோட எனர்ஜியை டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டோம். அந்த எனர்ஜி வந்து எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுச்சு. ஏன்னா இன் பர்சன்ல கிடைக்கிற எனர்ஜிக்கும் விஷுவல் நாங்கள் வெறும் விஷுவலை பார்த்து பேசிட்டு இருக்கோம். அந்த விஷுவலை பார்த்து கிடைக்கிற எனர்ஜிக்கும் டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் இருக்குல்ல. ஆனா அந்த டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் வந்து எங்களோட ரிஹர்சல் எல்லாத்தையுமே நாங்கள் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா பிரேக் பண்ணிக்கிட்டோம். இல்ல நமக்கு இருக்கிற பாசிபிலிட்டி இதுதான், நம்ம இதை கொடுக்க போறோம், நம்ம இந்த எனர்ஜி டிரான்ஸ்ஃபரை இப்படி வச்சுக்கலாம், இப்படி பண்ணலாம். அதே போல 4 பேருமே ஒன்னா இருக்க முடியாது. 4 பேருக்குமே ஒரே பேண்ட்வித் கிடையாது, ஒரே டேட்டா பிளான்ஸ் கிடையாது. எல்லாருமே ஒவ்வொரு டைமுக்கு அடாப்ட் ஆகி ஒவ்வொரு டைமுக்கு அட்ஜஸ்ட் ஆகி எஸ் வி ஹேவ் டு டூ இட், திஸ் இஸ் த பாசிபிலிட்டி, ஸோ லெட்ஸ் டூ இட். அந்த எனர்ஜி இந்த எனர்ஜி கொஞ்சம் டிஃப்ரெண்டாகவே இருக்கு எங்களுக்கு. இன் பர்சன் கிடைக்கிற எனர்ஜியை விட திஸ் எனர்ஜி இஸ் குவைட் டிஃப்ரெண்ட். அண்ட் எஸ் வி ஆர் ஹாப்பி, ஆக்சுவலி வி ஆர் ஹாப்பி தட் வி கேன் பிரசன்ட் திஸ் பிளே இன் திஸ் பேண்டமிக் சிச்சுவேஷன். அண்ட் தேங்க்ஸ் டு Mangai for making us united in this kind of situation and helping us that yes, you can do something in this time of situation also. So thanks to Mangai and to all my fellow cast members. லாஸ்ட்ல நானே முடிச்ச இங்கிலீஷ்ல, நீங்க ஃபர்ஸ்ட் சொன்னதை மட்டும் தமிழ்ல செய்து இங்கிலீஷ்ல சொல்லிருக்கேன்.
ஆமா, அவனே இங்கிலீஷ்ல முடிச்சதுனால. பட் the main point I guess was the difference between the two kinds of energy that you generate working in person as opposed to here. But the thing in Tamil was that over time through rehearsals we had to come to terms with what is that was available to us by way of generating energy while being in this process, and get used to this new, which we didn't know before, but still bring that same energy into this format as well. And so he's happy that we were able to do that and present this play, and he thanked Mangai in English only. So yeah, okay. Tamilarasi?
Hi. Okay. For me, the question was, the conflict that I was in was whether the show must go on or the show must not go on. Should we keep functioning or should we take a break from everything? But yeah, I think after a point we needed something to tell us that we tell ourselves that we exist, and so in the process, like you saw, we had various levels of equipments and facilities that each one of us had. I think the question for us is to, you know, take everyone together, and we kind of tried to do it. The people who didn't have enough accommodation facility to do it, but we had to take them together also, and I think that is a very important thing to do at times like this. That's it, and thank you so much for this. I'm happy I could be a part of this. Yeah, that's it. I hope I was clear.
Okay, my turn. I think one of the things, I think most of the actors covered a lot of what I wanted to say as well. I think one of the things about this production, for better or for worse, is this sort of, the feeling of that, the loneliness, the way by which the hierarchies of the world have been like laid bare in front of us, where we can't hide anymore. And that's one of the things that Corona has done all over the world. And the thing with this play is that we're talking about it, but we're also living through it. Me less so than everybody else, because there aren't the same kind of restrictions here, but it's such an integral part of my life. Through the process of this play, I've lost my grandfather to the virus, and listening to stories of so many of my loved ones, and the sheer horror at not knowing when I'm going to see everybody again, right? So for an actor, I think often for those of us doing political theater, we have to channel the things we hear around us, if you're activists also, into a play about whatever issue. In some ways here, doing the acting that we did in this play, it was really close to home. A lot of things were close to home, and it really, and we were alone in so much of the, not alone like entirely, but just physically alone in a space, through so much of the emotive process that we had to look inward. We had to sort of dig deep. And that's a process for actors anyway, but just like everything else, making a play in this time gives you no choice but to do that hard work, I think, which was very rewarding, and especially rewarding to see that it's communicating to people watching this production as well, but also like just really, really hard as well. So that's all I wanted to add. There's Sadashi, who worked with us on all the movements, which is interesting because to do collective movement workshops on video is a whole other universe. So maybe Sadashi, you want to...
So I actually kind of joined while they were already in the process. They had a script by the time I first saw what they were doing and what was happening. And for me, when I heard the script, and Mange ma'am told me, find movement. So our theme is wearing the mask and feeling the mask. And beyond that, find movements that can show the images of what we're trying to say, of those particular issues that we're talking about. And as soon as I saw it, as I heard them read through the script the first time, all the images that I could think of immediately were things that I couldn't really work on in a video, because they required some space, they required some actual physical movement that could not have been possible, each of them in different spaces, and trying to create something within this frame. So everything that I had to think about, every image that I had to portray, had to come within this frame, this rectangular and frame, and each of their accommodations, their rooms, whichever they were using, were very different sized. It's not a shape that you can fix yourself. It's not like you take a stage and you say this much amount of space for this person. It's their own space, that's all they have. And how do you work with it? How do you make something uniform and still convey the image that you want to convey? So when I did share my first few images with Mange ma'am, it was, for her, it was, okay, but we can't do that here. Let's try something else. So we had to go through quite a few images and try to fix on something that was both minimalistic and at the same time conveying something, and to add sound to it. In fact, for a while, I had to struggle with trying to see how I can, use the sound while they were talking or while they were still, there. When I was using the sound directly, when I was playing live sound from my space, there was a lot of distraction and it used to get cut. People couldn't hear it properly. There were issues like that. So to understand how the technology was, how I can share it and then record the sound, share it, see what works. So all of that, so which means if I was recording, then I can't do live. I can't change it with what they were doing. It had to be set. So they had to practice with what was set, rather than doing something that can change with what they were doing at the time. So sound and movement all changed based on what we were working with. So that's been my experience, to try and understand this whole thing, to try and convey the right images with the right intensity that doesn't like break away from the play, so that, it's not too much work and too much within that frame to, break away from what was happening, but to still convey it right and to do it without too many issues. It was pretty new and a little difficult to go through that.
Nandita?
Yes, so when first I heard the rough script of the entire play, I was not able to visualize it, but I just had a very rough idea. Okay, these are the topics that could be possibly spoken about, and this would be a rough script. So when Krishna and ma'am had decided and they told me that this would be sort of the overall outline, and I would be required to make the backdrop. So the first image I had in mind when the term backdrop was used, I was literally thinking of a physical space, and it will be huge and the entire screen will be covered. So there would not be any extra bit of the house scene, just the backdrop and the participant. That's how I imagined. And when the measurement was given that this would be a rough estimate of size, and that's the size we will be printing it out on. And then I had a question. This space will not be enough for the participant to actually move if it's actually shown the way I am imagining, that is not having any house bits shown, just the printed image. And then once things actually started moving forward and the artworks were printed and it was put out, I was in for a shock. I was like, no, this is not how I expected. But eventually, since the entire script was as such that the way I am expecting is not how it's going to actually work. With the entirety, when I saw the rectangle with my artwork plus the house, it made a lot more sense than just having the artwork. it reflected on ideas which were not actually spoken on the artwork, but much more than that. So it was like three things to look at: one, what the artist is talking; one, what the performer is talking; and where the performance is happening. So there were a lot of things that were actually shown in that entire rectangle. And plus, when you see the four rectangles together, when these performers are performing, it just throws a lot on your face, and it's a lot hard. It gets a lot more harder to take in. So I just was in my bubble when I was doing my sketching, but when it comes together, there's a lot more that's happening. So I did not see that when I was starting the process. So I think that's my experience. So I can't just see an artwork in it's like just an artwork. Yeah.
Thank you so much. In fact, Meera has written in the chat that she would it be possible to get a closer look at these? So maybe before we end, if we can kind of play the first track and pause at the paintings, that might kind of help us. I don't know. I mean, for me, what is really moving, and the part that Nandita said, I mean, what does this kind of a painting do in a household? And with each household, it's different, you know. I mean, in Tamilarasan's house, it's with the clothes. In Poni's house, it's right next to something. In fact, Poni's and Tamilarasi, they worked hard to keep it as a proper stage. And we cluttered it again because real life is cluttered. So, but Tamilarasan and Soumya, I don't think had any option. So I mean, for me, it is really puzzling to see, you know, in theater, on stage, if you want to create this kind of a real life setting, I don't think we would ever be able to bring in this lived experience on stage, you know. And whatever this particular play focused on, whether it is fragmentation of the body parts, you know, the close-ups that came up, and, you know, so those are things that I don't think we can do on stage. You know, I mean, we can try fragmentation with some lighting and stuff, but this is another form altogether. So there were a lot of restrictions, but I also thought there's a lot of possibility. I mean, even though, I mean, I know all of you have been generous about the technical stuff, and I know it will happen however much we are prepared for it, but then it just hits you in your face that, you know, the so-called global technology that we are talking about. You know, I don't know if you came across in Tamil Nadu, there was a household with 3 sisters who were all studying, and all of them had online classes, and they couldn't afford 3 different smartphones, and the eldest one actually took her life. So, so we can't kid ourselves and say that we can really reach out. You know, I mean, that asymmetry, the inequality in the access to resources in the place where we are staying. You know, Tamilarasan has 2 kids, and Soumya lives with other community members. And you did hear the talk coming in. I mean, Puni has 2 cats which keep running in and jumping onto her lap. And I think the performance goes on with that, with all that, you know. So, I mean, I'm still sorting it out in my head. I don't know what to really do with this, but this is, I mean, I just felt that we can't keep quiet. We need to really do something, and this is a form that we all know. So the kind of meetings, weekly meetings that we started doing in April, we thought just to keep up our own morale, you know, so that you don't really lose touch. This is a form which requires practice, your riyaz, so to speak, and you can't just come back to it like, you know, I mean, people do say it's like cycling and swimming, but I'm not so sure. You know, one really needs to kind of keep tuning your body and voice and mind into this. So we started doing that, but then I think it really took us to areas that we hadn't really thought of. And I mean, the training itself is what what I think we have in a regular mainstream kind of theatre training. But then it is a way that we adapt, and the purpose for which we are doing, which really kind of changes the whole phenomena. You know, so I mean, this kind of coming together of Indu, Dilo, and Vani joining us, you know. I mean, Vani had seen just one more show which I did in college, in Stella Maris College, where you came for the tech run. You know, I mean, apart from that, I've never been able to share our work, you know, and especially for those of us who can't really get a good video and stuff. I mean, there are people who are saying, why don't we shoot it properly, edit it and upload it? But I think we should experience and partake in this kind of vulnerability. You know, and
that's something on that.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to just take off. Sorry, is anyone else waiting to speak?
No,
Can
please. Yeah.
I actually want to take off from both what Tamilarasi said and what Mangai just said. I think, you know, as people engaged in question.
Have the last word, but go ahead.
Okay, so, you know, as people engage in wanting to do politics, however it is we do it, through art, through protest, through whatever, or sometimes they're both the same thing. I think one is that, you know, we also, in these times that have been extremely stultifying as well as extremely naked in what's going on actually in the world, we need to act to just assure ourselves that we are real, we exist, and that we breathe for a reason. You know, I think so we're all also pushing to think of how does one speak, how does one make work, how does one protest, how does one write, how does one revisit all these things that one does in a particular way, in a particular kind of life, which may never come back to that normal. I think the digital world is going to now invade our lives or be part of our lives in a different way. It's unlikely we'll be able to drop it as easily as we had to pick it up, or as compulsorily as we had to pick it up. So, and I think even in the performance that Punni was referring to with Maya Rao and Vikram, the thing was to actually think of how do and I honestly was, you know, I'm almost I had to retrofit some of that understanding. It happened to me after we did it. Because, you know, the interplay between characters, the tension between characters, how do you keep that going when you're all actually in separate worlds? You know, so that is something. And, you know, unlike you guys, we are not a team. I mean, there are two seasoned performers and then there's someone like me, you know, so there's a different kind of dynamic there. But I have to say that thing about being in each one's world, and I want to take it to the design question as well. It was actually, while I was watching it, I thought, this is the power of documentary coming to theater. There was something extremely real about seeing people in their life, in their settings, in a theater piece. Okay, so for me, sometimes as a documentary filmmaker, I'm often saying, oh my God, you know, I could never recreate this, because that's also because my power of fictional recreation is limited. I understand that. But partly when I was watching this performance, it was like being with something of the real person and something of there was a setting which created a different, my understanding of that real person. I understand it's constructed, but it's constructed differently from when you create spaces in a formal performance space, even if they are discrete, you know, even if they are some sort of capsules or pods or whatever they are. There's a way in which just entering those spaces, and I think also because of what you all were talking about, because we're talking about an everydayness of living with masks, living with tolerance, to pretend in a way that it's not really happening to you. Something about that real setting for me actually just deepened the experience. So I don't know, that's something we need to think about when we are looking at where do we go from here as forms or as work. But I found it very enriching actually personally. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah. I wanted to pick up on that as well, because I think like seeing the clothes on Samya's bed, this is, you know, during this lockdown, we have no difference between our intimate spaces and our workspaces. We are doing everything on this platform. We, you know, like people are dating on this platform, people are making art on this platform, you're working on this platform, you're having a birthday party on this platform, you're doing everything. you possibly can. And you live in your workspace and you work in your live space. Like you just, if you're lucky enough to have a roof over your head. And I think that that's something that is really important to acknowledge, because it's a part of that isolation, but it's also that divide between the intimate and the professional, or the all of those blurs, lines are completely blurred at this point. And here, you know, there's a lot of conversation around the politics of keeping your video on or not in these sessions, because people are afraid of showing people where they live because of class conditions. And I think that that's something that's incredibly important to kind of just give a nod towards. And I think this, just the set of each performer gives that, you know, it gives a unspoken acknowledgement of some of those conditions. The other thing I wanted to say that I thought was really remarkable about this play is that I think there's something about seeing something that's like, it's almost like, you know, in some settings you can see like 2-channel videos or whatever, like within the art world, and this is a live 4-channel theater production. And I think there's something really interesting in terms of the form, and I think this is a new form. This is not a form that we've ever had to make before, and the conditions have created a completely new form. And there's something quite magical about finding ways of, as Thamil Edison had said, sharing energy within a context that is like adverse to that. And I think there's something quite incredible about the ability to do that. And picking on what Mange said, like this form, whether it's the old version or the new version, I don't think it's like riding a bike. I think your muscle memory might be there, but I think with all muscles, you have to continue to use them to make them be active, to make sure that the strength and flexibility is present all at the same time. And I think that's what this play has shown me, is that with keeping those muscles active during a time that's sedentary, you have been able to develop a very different kind of strength and a very different kind of flexibility using, you know, because we exist in a completely different gravitational form. We're existing in a different gravity than what we existed in before. And I think that, you know, that ingenuity has really come through. I'm also talking in movement language because that's what I'm studying right now. So understanding gravitational force on your muscles. But it's just so absolutely just so beautiful to see something like this happen. And I love that there isn't an attempt to polish it, to edit it, to make it more crisp than it needs to be, because we don't live in that time and we don't have the luxury of that. And I don't want to go back to that. Even if we are able to meet in person again, and I would love to meet all of you in person again, I don't want to go back to a different kind of masking. This time has unmasked so much as well in terms of our personal connections and how we relate to each other. And you know, we don't need to go back to that other form either.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very important person from our team who hasn't spoken yet, who's Krishna, who's in Zoom and the close, and so has a very, very important role to play in all of this. So Krishna, if you can.
So usually when there are productions happening in a physical space, there's a lot of running around involved. Like you have to get the right venue, you need to find the right time slot, and it often ends up a very tedious task. And for Zoom, we also had a similar experience. It's more of a trial and error method. So we've been attending webinars and meetings. So we needed to find the right format to have just those 4 performers on screen. We didn't want to see other grids because that would ruin the continuity of the performance. So we had to see which package would help us in that, how many participants we can have, how many roles we can have in that. So it was a lot of research. I had to talk to people from Zoom to see which would be the perfect platform for this. And so finally we found the webinar, and it was a lot of trial and error to find out that we had to hide non-video participants even when it was in a panelist mode, because you need those 4 screens. So like considering all the technical restraints and everything, again, it takes a long time to get used to it. Initially, we weren't very comfortable with talking to the camera, but in the end, we learned to interact with the camera. And that was something we have been trying to do since April. Like when the discussion started, the first question was how we can utilize the camera, because now the camera is your performance space, not a stage. So it was a long task, but I think it worked out very well for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krishna. So maybe I can open it up now.
Does Dilo
Unless
want
Dilo,
to
you want to
add anything? Dilo? Okay,
So,
you'll come in whenever
yeah,
you want.
I'm looking at the list of people on here, and I see a whole bunch of artists, activists, academicians who work with art. So anything that came to mind, any more questions you might have for us? I see Akshay Tanka's question here. He says, there's no question there, no? Apart from the poem, are there other literary and artistic works that informed, inspired, fostered this focus to speak to the current political environment?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, more than inspiration, they were created for this. You know, like Sugidharani was asked to
There's
really write.
more than one poem in there. So there's Maya Angelou's poem, which was Tamil Nadu, Suhirdarani, who
yeah.
Can anyone hear anything?
No. So Sugidharani is one of our
Go ahead.
Dalit poets. One of our Dalit poets, and it's been my dream to really work with her poems. And she also has a very vivid visual imagery. And so I think the sections on child sexual abuse and the last one were written by Sugidharani. They were long. I mean, I needed to edit it, but then I mean, it was very moving when she wrote the lines, you know, our corpses are expecting natural deaths, you know, I mean, you're looking forward to a natural death. So, I mean, it was intense for her as well. And the translation also, we did multiple translations and then chose to retain from different translations. So we had Anita, we had V. Geeta and Poni who did the translation. And some of the texts also kind of changed while performing. For example, even Maya Angelou's lines, you know, like a dancer walking or a singer talking. When Poni says it, she kind of emphasizes the fact of, you know, how would it be if a dancer is just walking and a singer is just talking and not really singing. So actually when we worked on the subtitle, there were issues about, do we want to actually translate from the play, back translate into English? But then, you know, one loves Maya Angelou so much, so you didn't want to tamper with her. So we retained Maya Angelou's section as is, and then went on to translate the other sections in Tamil, from Tamil to English, trying to keep to whatever the actors were trying to enunciate. Yeah. Thank you, Indu. Poni, can you check who are the panel? Anybody else? Tashi?
Any more questions or comments? Hello all, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
I think our tech hassles are going through the roof now. There are also some comments on the chat, so I'd request all of you to take a look at the chat as well before we end this Zoom. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask or say something?
Uma?
Uma just gets called on.
Maybe one.
I'm calling you out.
Sorry. The old Tamil habit.
Oh, so sorry. But you know, well, you know, what to say? I think it's fantastic that the form, that is the fact that we are in Zoom form, and the only means by which we can communicate is Zoom, is turned into something like a fantastic piece of theater and art. So for me, the what do you call it? The master stroke is that, you know, to be able to actually, and all the time we're doing these stupid meetings, you know. I think Vani will understand, various people will understand. And the Zoom is coming out of my ears, you know, you have to do lecture, you have to do meetings, you have to do sexual harassment complaints committees, God knows all sorts of stuff which is coming on Skype or Zoom or whatever. So the form is, it's no doubt that it's enabling, but I never could have imagined that it could have been turned into something which was like a challenge and innovation. But I can see the moment I started watching the thing, you could see, and I felt that even in the Maya production, the Maya, that is the space itself, and that the quote unquote the limitations of that form is turned into something which is a fantastic advantage, you know, in the sense of, and your team has explained how marvelous they were able to transform from theater to Zoom space in a leap of imagination and a leap of faith, which I think is quite stunning as I see. So that's the creativity and the passion and I think also the emotion that you are able to generate through this form. I miss the fact that because my Tamil is not good enough, I can't catch the nuances. So at the end of the day, I was wondering if there is some way, if the technology boom can take us to give us running translations as we go along. I mean, I would really think that is a fantastic way we can expand our...
Uma, we had that closed caption. There's a button.
I couldn't see it.
You didn't turn it on.
I wish I had known that. So sorry. Closed caption, I saw it. So anyway, I'll have to see it again in that form, perhaps. Yeah, that's the only thing. But what was I going to say? Also, I began to think immediately, very creatively, Mangai, for all of us, that actually we should do the COVID version of the Therigatha in Zoom form, okay? Because we could just pick on these marvelous bhikshunis who went through their own experiences of lockdown and suffering and death and whatever it is, and my mind went in that direction. Of course, that's, you know, that's neither here nor there. But I did enjoy you can't call it enjoy. I was quite moved by the manner in which the form was used to bring in so many different elements. So yes, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uma. Nice wall, by the way. So yeah, I'm not a believer in forcefully calling out people's names if they don't feel like talking. Please feel free to leave comments in the chat as well. And we also don't want to propagate the culture of being on Zoom endlessly in stupid meetings, as Uma put it. So if there's anyone else who'd like to add something else at this point, our panelists or anyone else, the other thing we like to do is get everyone to turn on their cameras before we go, so that we get to actually see all the people who are here, at least through one of our senses, even if we can't touch or smell each other, to at least be able to see each other, hear each other. So are there any more comments at this stage from anybody? If not, let the videos begin.
Hello. Wow.
Amazing.
Lovely, lovely to see you all. Hi.
Can you take?
There you go. Hello, Lata.
I can't tell you how moved we are to be able to present this play to this audience. It's just, there are just so many thinkers and art makers from so many different, and activists from so many different parts of the world. It's also like an international party in my house. I think the only other thing I wanted to add is that there are a number of opportunities that horrible situation we are in has opened up for us. So I, for example, wouldn't have been able to perform with Tamilarasan, Tamilarasi and Saumya if not for being forced to use this technology. So I think the art in this context is forcing us to look at things more holistically, to look at things and the world around us. And this is also why, at least for me personally, so many different friends from so many different
Yeah. Vani.
universes from all over the world been, acted in. And that's also made possible, and our sort of human, yeah.
Yeah, let's
Thank
all
you so
unmute
much.
and give ourselves a big clap. Let's do that. Unmute yourselves. And
Thank you. I really missed this actually. I missed it when you guys were performing. I'm like, what do we do? Do this with our screens off.
I know.
So, Mangai, thanks.
Thank you all. Love you all so much. Unbelievable that it all fit into one frame. I can't imagine. It's like crazy. Really, Uma, I get to see your face.
I know. You originally saw the back of the computer, the back wall of the computer, not the front wall. But anyway.
Yeah. It's nice to see your face, Uma.
Yeah, nice to
Bye.
see you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This part of Zoom I like.
I know.
Good night.
Good night.
Good afternoon.
Bye. Good night and thank you.
Only has rain stopped in Bati? I think she left. Wow.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
I think so. I don't know. I haven't gone outside.
Bye.
Bye. Audio level.
Thank
That
you.
was so lovely.
Bye.
I just want to show you all my Buddhas.
Bye.
Guys, this is
Uma.
just in a public event.
Stay on.
Bye, Meena.
Uma. Wait, Uma.
Yeah, what? I'm there. Yeah, tell me. Tell me.
Bye, everyone.
I see Arisu's going.
Hello.
Yeah.
Krishna,
Can you see
shall
the
we
lights?
end this call before it disintegrates?
It's already
Hi, Uma. There we see your face.
Hi.
That's all my Buddhas with lights.
Oh, great. Very good. Very good. Excellent.
No, but Uma, I have a lot to steal from your house.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
I have already marked them. Meena, lovely.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dilo.
so much.
Have
Bye,
a good
Tashi.
day.
Bye, Tashi.
Bye, Jan.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, bye, bye.
Swati.
What a funny,
Quite a day, quite a
quite a day, and look at that. It was raining, in Batticula, so I didn't think it'll go like that.
But we finished it well, so.
It was really good. I mean, even with the technical glitches, actually, technical glitches became part of the performance, actually. It's
Yeah,
like,
making us more miserable.
Reminding us how miserable it is.
No, I mean, especially for Pony today. Soumya, we have been having problems every time.
There's a bandwidth issue, I think, generally in the area.
No, we have a Wi-Fi. We got her a, what is it? Dongle.
Dongle.
And I was carrying it around when I came to Gaya and all that. Tashi, it worked wonders.
Oh, yeah.
I even watched a movie on it.
Nice.
But for her, I think her house is in such a way that something is wrong. No?
Yeah.
But we need to work on that, Krishna. Let me know what.
I think I figured out what the problem is. So we'll do one more trial and see if that's the actual error.
Yeah. We will plan that and keep it just in case ready.
Yes.
Take care, guy. Hopefully see you soon in person, not online.